This will be the most complete and comprehensive video on Squirrel Girl ever done, going in detail about how strong she is and all the insane feats she has shown that put her on laughably higher scale than characters like Saitama, Popeye, Goku, Alien X, or whoever you think can beat her. I have read through every single appearance of hers from her introduction in the 90s to the Great Lake Avengers, Deadpool, New Avengers, the US Avengers, the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Gwenpool, the Avengers, and so much more. You will never see anybody else doing that on YouTube. So please like, subscribe, and etc. because it shows you appreciate the time, effort, and research that goes into these videos on characters that most people don't even bother to do so and just Google it. So first of all, let's start with some of the lower tier characters she has defeated. Now, there's even weaker or unimportant characters, but I'm trying to give you an idea for her baseline, so I'm going to use relatively known characters within comic books. So she beat Whiplash, Kraven the Hunter, Spider-Man and Captain America a few times, Doc Ock, female Doc Ock, Black Widow, Wolverine, Falcon and Captain America, Rhino, and a few Frost Giants. And actually defeated Venom, who actually turns out to be Nightmare, which is a way more impressive feat. But what I'm getting at is that not only is she strong enough to fight these street tier characters, some of them being able to destroy or lift things like whole apartment blocks, but she's skilled enough to go 1v1 in hand-to-hand combat with some of the most skilled and some of the best martial artists ever. Guys who either know all martial arts on Earth and beyond, or people who fight these kind of guys. Like how she defeated Wolverine in hand-to-hand combat, even though Wolverine himself just defeated Iron Fist, who knows all martial arts on Earth, alongside his own, which is kind of like a martial arts avatar thing. Or Taskmaster, who can learn, copy, and adapt to any farting style in real time. Same could be said about Black Panther, Captain America, Black Widow, and many others when it comes to skill. All characters she has defeat in a fight, sometimes multiple at once. She even beats Deadpool, who stalemates Daredevil in the same issue. And they need the full team of Daredevil plus Cap America plus Hercules and a few others to even stop him. Then, later on, she just kicks him the fuck out of the Great Lake Avengers, and she's the only one strong enough to do so on the team, even though the team actually has some pretty strong characters, even though they are treated like jokes. She beats Deadpool again, even with him trying one of his meta-textual, meta-narrative, fourth wall break abilities in Squirrel Girl Beats Up the Marvel Universe. And that title tells you everything you need to know about her. In this story, she defeats the Thing and Magneto, who are both continental to planetary level threats at the very least. And you can add the X-Men, Purple Man, Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, Black Panther, MODOK, Wolverine, Storm. I think that is Century, but the art style is very weird, so it might not be. And Gwenpool. Some of these are whatever, but Century, for example, is at least as powerful as a million exploding stars, and is considered a threat to all the Avengers and beyond. Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange are straight up universal level characters who fight characters like Mephisto or Dormammu that I'm going to get later into, because this level of characters threatened the universe or even the multiverse on occasions. Alias, who is consistently strong enough to defeat the Thing and fight the Fantastic Four, and even Jane Foster Thor, gets off-screened by Squirrel Girl alongside his dumb army that honestly nobody cares about. I don't know why I'm being so mean, but who cares about freaking Annihilus when she tanks a full attack from Hulk? Then uses her squirrel powers to depower him and defeat him. While she doesn't just like punch him, it's still very impressive because she's able to tank and survive and then get up from Hulk's attacks. To make this more consistent, she's regularly training with the Hulk, and she was regularly sent to fight on par with Red Hulk while they were both part of the US Avengers. And she actually met Hulk while he was fighting Abomination, who she was able to overpower and almost defeat until Hulk came in to finish the job. Which is almost the same way she met the Thing, who sometimes rivals Hulk in power. Now, throughout the story, some of these fights are won by her with the help of gadgets and items she took from characters she already defeat. However, what I haven't said about the story is that there is actually an evil doppelganger of Squirrel Girl, and she's the one that did all the feats that I've just shown in the story. And the real one comes in to defeat her while she has all these items, meaning that all of this was done by someone weaker than Squirrel Girl. Actually, it's kind of funny because by the end of the story, all the Avengers and all the characters from this comic come together and jump her to beat her ass. And they don't just kill her. She resists and she keeps her ground. She even fights back a little bit while fighting all these guys at the same time. And then the one thing that actually puts her down is Squirrel Girl with Thor's hammer. Because yeah, she is worthy. And then she takes Thor's hammer and just beats the other Squirrel Girl who's evil, solidifying that she is kind of the strongest out of all these guys. And one of the funnier bits is her defeating the Avengers, either with electricity by outsmarting them or just by fighting them. Hell, even they know she can. Tony even has a Squirrel Buster built specifically for her or modified from the Hulkbuster. And obviously, none of that actually matters. And he doesn't really have one for most characters. This is consistent as she always fights alongside the Avengers or defeats characters that the Avengers are struggling with, like with that one dinosaur or like Taskmaster who was fighting Hulk, Spider-Man, Falcon Cap, etc. So based on everything we've seen so far, I would say that she's consistently a threat to the Avengers or even beyond that. Something that I thought it was genuinely pretty hilarious was in the newest Secret Invasion, where you had these meetings and you got all these either core Avenger members or really powerful heroes, and then you have Squirrel Girl. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but the fact that they even put her in the story is not only amazing, but just unexpected. Also, the even funnier part is when everyone's being forced to test if they're a Skrull or not, and they're like, yeah, Cap and Iron Man, we got bullets specifically made to cook you. Thor, we about to hit you with a tranquilizer real quick, and we'll just tease your ass, Doctor Strange. But when they talk with Captain Marvel and Squirrel Girl, they're like, we basically just hope you go along as we have nothing on you. It was just such a hilarious moment of acknowledgement for Squirrel Girl out of nowhere in this serious story, where they put her at the same level as Captain Marvel, basically saying, yeah, we could take down Thor, Iron Man, the Avengers, whatever, but Squirrel Girl, yeah, we acknowledge that it would be hard to beat her. That's very wholesome in a weird way. I don't know how to describe it. It's very cool. It's very cute. Now, she does have some anti-feats, and I just want to mention that her run with the new Avengers, the US Avengers, and the Avengers She doesn't necessarily lose a lot. I don't think she loses at all, but also she doesn't have any victories. They put her in a team, or they put her off screen, or they sideline her in a way where she doesn't necessarily win much against like strong opponents, but she never really loses. So it's kind of a neutral thing. Like you can read all of that and you get no fits from it, almost at all. She doesn't really do anything narratively either, so I'm just wondering why is she in some of those stories, you know? But one of her anti-feats in her solo run is somehow being inferior to the Silver Surfer, who she does damage but seems to not be able to beat. It's very strange, I would say, but it would be dishonest to not mention it at least. Her speed does keep up with him, which is impressive as he travels the universe in seconds, and sometimes he's so fast he travels back in time. But at the end of the day, he doesn't defeat her, they just become friends, which keeps her title true as not all of her fights need her to win outright, just not lose or die basically. And also, to make it clear, she does get like knocked out or loses the initial encounter if the plot demands it. It's just that she wins at the end of the day, and she doesn't necessarily win by punching. Just want to make that clear, that she's not unbeatable in the sense that nothing affects her, but that somehow she wins at the end of the day, to befriending somebody, to outsmarting somebody, sometimes beating somebody, but it's never just, hey, I'm like Superman, I'm indestructible, so you can punch me as much as you want. No, it's just that she finds a way. She's kind of a combination of like someone like Superman who's very strong, but also someone like Batman who's very smart, and also someone like, I don't know, Naruto or Steven Universe who manages to talk down her opponents and befriend them. Her biggest actual anti-feat is from this lame ass Fantastic Four story where the writer is being a loser. I'm not going to lie. He goes out of his way to write it so this goofy but, to be fair, extremely powerful, be it Franklin Richards, the Watcher and Galactus were involved. It was a whole thing. He's a very strong guy, to be fair. But this villain goes and specifically fights the Great Lake Avengers so they can be like, you don't look so unbeatable after all. But whoever wrote this is kind of dumb because she wasn't part of the Great Lake Avengers. She hasn't been part of it for like 10 years. Ever since then, she's been part of like the New Avengers, the all new Avengers, the US Avengers, the Avengers, and her squad that doesn't have a name but exists within her solo run, right? So him going to fight the Great Lake Avengers to fight her doesn't make a lot of sense. And it looks like it was made out of pure spite or trying to make a dumb joke. I don't get it. And it's not a matter of she lost, so I don't like it. It's a matter of they went out of their way to write it so that guy defeats her, which is very weird. I mean, it's not like she dies or anything. She doesn't like stay down. She actually comes back and she still defeated the Brotherhood of the Badoon and stopped their invasion by the end of the story anyway, but yeah, whoever wrote that, it's just weird. I don't know why they went out of their way to do it like that. But that's kind of like her biggest and only anti-feat, and it comes from a character that's like multiversal to like outerversal. So it's not that crazy of a anti-feat. There's been worse for a lot of characters. Now, let me get into some minor stuff before I get into Doctor Doom. She's considered the biggest threat to Kang the Conqueror, according to himself, even though he is the guy that beats the Avengers all the time. Squirrel Girl and her old future self defeated him in combat. And she also had multiple run-ins with the Asgardian Squirrel Goddess, and she doesn't beat her, but befriends her. And now she's one of her associates that can help her in battle, which is very appropriate given, they're both squirrels. And while she was in the Great Lake Avengers, she apparently defeats Fin Fang Foom, Baron Mordo, Korvac, and Ego the Living Planet. For people who don't know this, it's very impressive because Fin Fang Foom fights Thor and Hulk all the time. and Ego is a whole planet. Not only that, but he's consistently put in this cosmic tier of characters like Galactus, like Dormammu, like the Watcher, like the guy who allegedly defeated Squirrel Girl earlier. He's put in those conversations all the time, even though he's a dumb planet. So that alone is actually very impressive. But the more impressive thing at face value is Korvac, who can manipulate the whole universe, making him a universal threat on the page with no needing for like he beat this guy to do this and he beat no. He is every time he shows up a universal threat and is consistent to his character. And Baron Mordo is a rival to Doctor Strange, and sometimes even stronger. This just adds to the consistency of Squirrel Girl being in Steven's range of power or even beyond. Squirrel Girl's greatest enemy is probably Doctor Doom, as she debuted in a comic where she quite literally defeats him. This is infamous for her. Probably the most iconic moment in her history alongside beating Thanos. However, this was by no means a fluke. There's claims out there that she barely did it, or she only did it twice, or they haven't met enough for it to be consistent. Flat out, I disagree. She has encountered Doom at least 6 occasions, as far as I'm aware. The first was her debut, where she easily beat him with squirrels. Second time, she just ran past all Latveria's defenses to take his time machine, and he didn't even try to stop her, because he couldn't. Third time, he killed Monkey Joe, but it was not actually Doom. It was some guy pretending to be Doom, like a cosplayer. But when she was asked by S.H.I.E.L.D. to join them, we see them face again in a compilation of people she has defeated that is different from the previous encounters with him. And finally, there's a whole time travel thing where Squirrel Girl ends up using versions of herself to beat him instead of squirrels, which is funny because usually she uses squirrels to overwhelm him. Now she used squirrel girls to overwhelm him. Even on Christmas, she pulled up on him with no problem and no worries, and he even calls her his 6th biggest nemesis, which is impressive as the Fantastic Four are top 1 through 4. And the last encounter I will mention later because it's even more insane. She beat him with the Watcher being present, ensuring it's not a clone or robot and it's the real Thanos. Even if you don't believe it, it's also shown on panel on another occasion. She either defeated him or convinced him to stop whatever he was planning, or both. And he had the Infinity Gauntlet too. She also held the Infinity Gauntlet once and again punched him on screen, which makes her insanely powerful even if she wasn't already OP, because with the gauntlet, Thanos imprisoned the main cosmic entities, and you could either argue she's strong enough to fight against it because Thanos had it, or that she had it, so she was at that level. Or again, both. Whichever it is, that makes her insanely powerful. And there's arguably another instance that we haven't seen, but it's mentioned. Even if none of this is convincing to you, then look, in this fight where she famously defeats Thanos, he holds a device that threatens the whole multiverse, which is above Thanos' pay grade anyway. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Whatever or whoever this was, if it was a clone, if it was a robot, it doesn't matter. It was still stronger than the normal Thanos, as it was threatening the universe and the multiverse, which Thanos cannot do on a normal basis without an item. Deep into her singles run, she fights on par with not Loki or Doctor Strange, but with Sorcerer Supreme Loki against Dormammu, who they actually managed to defeat by using the spirits of dead squirrels. Dormammu even slaps her and she tanks it. This dude's whole gimmick is destroying and absorbing whole universes. And her squirrel powers, well, ghost squirrels, but you get it. The squirrels dog walk Dormammu in his own realm. And again, this is consistent because she's on par with Supreme Loki and has defeated Doctor Strange, Mordo, Ghost Rider, Dormammu, and Mephisto while teaming up with Gwenpool, who also beat up Dormammu in the same issue. Squirrel Girl also beat Gwen, as I mentioned earlier, so everything makes it consistent that she's at least this level, usually. In the final storyline of her solo comic, she is jumped by a bunch of older, obscure villains that she has fought or defeated in the past, but she manages to actually talk them down. However, this was all a distraction for the real group of villains trying to kill her, and it's honestly quite insane. Let me list them. So first you have Whiplash, Taskmaster, and the Leader. I mean, yeah, they're like pretty important villains to their own superheroes, but nothing too crazy. Then you have MODOK, who she has defeated before a few times, Mordo again, and Fin Fang Foom again. Those are characters that are like planetary level threats, if not universal, depending on who you're asking. And then you have Doctor Doom again and Dormammu. This is what I was talking about earlier with the one Doctor Doom encounter I haven't mentioned yet. Doctor Doom teams up with Whiplash, Taskmaster, the Leader, MODOK, Mordo, Fin Fang Foom, and Dormammu because he's so mad that he couldn't defeat Squirrel Girl. I honestly never seen Doctor Doom even team up with people before, really, unless it was like a big event against some cosmic entity. So the fact that he goes to these lengths just so he can defeat Squirrel Girl tells you how strong she is, that she needs a whole Akatsuki made of like planetary and universal level threats to defeat her. These guys, at least some of them, are some of the strongest villains in Marvel, and they were like, yeah, we need to jump her. Like, this is absolutely insane. Our universe has 3 dimensions, 3 points to move in space. You got back and forth, up, down, left, right. A 2D object, like a drawing, can only go up and down, or back and forth, like the original Mario games, for example. Imagine it like a square versus a cube. The cube is infinitely greater than the square because no matter how many squares you got, you can just never stack them up, so it can never measure to the cube. The difference between 2D objects and 3D objects is like the difference between you and a drawing, to put it simply. So if you destroy a 3D universe, like ours, you're a universe level threat. If you destroy more than one, anywhere from 2 to, I don't know, an infinite amount, you are a multiverse level threat. Sounds pretty simple so far. I hopefully got across what I was trying to say.
We are going to go over 3 dimensions in 1 minute. We'll start with the first dimension, and the first dimension has one defined direction. One-dimensional shapes are lines. These are the only one-dimensional shapes you can draw, and lines have a length. But now let's bump up to the second dimension. The second dimension defines a second direction. This allows us to draw more shapes, such as circles, triangles, and squares. Two-dimensional shapes have both a perimeter and an area. The perimeter just defines the length of the outside. It's almost like you're taking the one-dimensional measurement and applying it to the second dimension. Area, on the other hand, will give you the measurement of the entire shape. So if you have a square, for example, this will give you all of the edges as well as everything within the square. The third dimension defines a third direction. Now, in the third dimension, you can define 3-dimensional shapes like spheres, cones, and cubes. 3-dimensional objects have a surface area and a volume. A surface area basically just takes the area of every side of your shape and adds it all up. So if we have a cube, it takes the area of the square on every single side, and since a cube has 6 sides, we need to add 6 square areas. The volume, on the other hand, measures the entirety of the outside and inside of your cube, or whatever 3-dimensional shape that you have. That is 3 dimensions in 1 minute.
But there's a way to go beyond a universe, or even a multiverse, by introducing more spatial dimensions. Like something that is 4th dimensional, for example. The difference between the 4th dimension and the 3rd is the same as between the 3rd and the 2nd. or you and a drawing. So think of higher dimensions as infinitely superior to the previous one. The seventh is infinitely superior to the sixth is to the fifth to the fourth to the third to the second, and basically each higher dimension sees the one below it as two-dimensional by comparison. Or a drawing, to put it simply again. Marvel Comics has established multiple times that it has higher dimensions. I'm not going to even bother to explain each individually, but I will show you on screen so that you can check it for yourself if you don't believe me for whatever reason. These higher dimensions can range anywhere from 4, 6, 10, 12, or whatever, even an infinite. Yes, in Marvel, there's an infinite hierarchy of spatial dimensions and higher realms. And why I'm saying this is because we are entering territories of absurd levels of power. These are the levels characters like Dormammu, Mephisto, and Nightmare are realistically at. I've been holding back so I can talk about it here, but all these characters are abstract ideas that work on a conceptual level and exist at a extra-dimensional levels of, well, existence and power. Dormammu has been called at the very least higher dimensional on numerous occasions, and he actually has to lower himself to go to the physical Marvel universe, but Squirrel Girl beat him in his own higher abstract realm. Mephisto, while fighting Galactus, was threatening to destroy the universe, and even his own realm. And their fight affected different planes of reality at the same time. Nightmare is at least on the level of these two, but at most, he can be interpreted as being on a scale of characters like Death and Eternity, characters that either embody or exist beyond all of space and time, which yes, includes all these higher dimensions, anywhere from 6, 10, 12, or quite literally, an infinity. Squirrel Girl even defeats Kugot and then gives him to the police, like Thanos in that hilarious page. This is extra hilarious because this guy is relative in strength to Shumagorath, who's an eldritch god a la H.P. Lovecraft that exists beyond all space and time, beyond infinite layers of higher dimensions. And now that we're at this point, it's time to argue that Squirrel Girl is universal, multiversal, and actually, arguably, outerversal. For people who don't understand what the hell I just said, let me put it this way. There's infinite higher dimensions in Marvel, and there's characters above them, and Squirrel Girl is strong enough to fight these characters. Even someone like Galactus, who is a threat to the universe, multiverse, beyond all space and time, and dimensions, and etc., doesn't necessarily lose to Squirrel Girl, but with her cosmic empathy, she manages to befriend him and convinces him to not eat Earth. And aside from that, she has the ability to call for him to aid her in battle at any point she wants, as she has already done in her final issue of her comic, where he comes in and defeats Doctor Doom, Fin Fang Foom, and even Dormammu. And again, just a reminder, at one point she held the Infinity Gauntlet and even the Ultimate Nullifier, with each of those being stronger than Galactus, Mephisto, Death, Eternity, etc. And perhaps her most impressive feat of all time, which you never heard about, but it apparently happened because she allegedly defeated the one below all, which is just insane. If you keep up with Marvel, the character is, if not equal to the one above all, then just below. Well, okay, the one below all being below the one above all makes sense, but it doesn't really matter. The one above all and the one below all are just aspects of each other. They're basically the same thing, kinda. It's hard to explain, but understand that Squirrel Girl is allegedly strong enough to defeat someone on the level or close to the level of the one above all. This will be above characters like Galactus, like Infinity, like Eternity, like the Living Tribunal, all these characters beyond infinite higher dimensions, beyond Outerversal, all these insane characters, and they're all not as strong as Squirrel Girl, which I mean makes sense because we literally see her go around and befriend like the Living Tribunal and Galactus and stuff. So we know that her empathy, her cosmic empathy, actually even works on characters on this level. So of course she will somehow either defeat or befriend the one below all. One of the strongest characters, not only in Marvel, but in fiction overall. To put it in perspective for people who don't understand this tier of power, these guys on this level are an infinite amount of infinity stronger than characters like Saitama or Goku. I didn't misspeak. An infinite amount of an infinite amount. That's how much powerful they are versus characters from Dragon Ball or from most anime, or yeah, it's just outrageous. And to finalize this whole thing, I'm going to go back to a character that I've already mentioned, but I haven't really gone into. That being Deadpool. Yes, she has defeated him multiple times, and it's impressive for a street tier character because of his skill. But what I'm talking about here is the meta narrative and the meta abilities these characters possessed, and how Squirrel Girl actually overpowered Deadpool's fourth wall abilities. We see Deadpool break the fourth wall all the time, and he always does wacky stuff, but Squirrel Girl's gag slash fourth wall abilities are so good that she overpowers his in every instance that they've ever met. He's never won or even one-upped her in any of their interactions. With Gwenpool is even more impressive, because this girl has defeated Dormammu and Mephisto as well, and actually, in a battle royal she sets up, the Immortal Hulk along with the Avengers, just to prove a point. This Hulk is arguably the strongest version of this character we have ever seen, being the literal embodiment of the one below all, the guy I just mentioned who was like God. And Gwenpool was not worried about him or Thor or anyone. She even beats him using her meta fourth wall powers. But when Squirrel Girl says that she would win this battle royal, meaning she would beat everyone there, including her and Hulk, Gwen agrees and allows her to leave so the battle is fair. Her meta powers might work against extra infinite dimensional beings, against Hulk empowered by God himself, but Squirrel Girl would still defeat her. That is the power of Squirrel Girl, and that's where this video ends, as it is very long, but also it has a lot of content and information in it. Thank you for watching the video. This is how strong she is, one of the strongest ever, and possibly, based on feats alone, the strongest gag character ever created.